around a bottle of wine and I'll hold you tonight.
Olá, antenados! Quem tá aqui na rádio hoje é um cantor e compositor sueco, autor de hits como Save Tonight e Falling in Love Again. Ele veio ao Brasil finalizar a turnê do seu último álbum, Streets of You. O entrevistado de hoje é o Olho de Águia, Eagle Eye Cherry. Vamos conferir? Hello, Eagle Eye. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's good to be here. Nice room. Nice piano.
Yeah, I think so too. So, your first time in Brazil was in the 90s, and I read that you really enjoy being here. What were your first impressions at the time, and has it changed?
To come to Brazil for me, the first time was fantastic because I grew up a lot with my father, who's a musician, played a lot of Brazilian music in our house, and I'd listen to it as a kid.
Oh,
like the old school Jobim, Gilberto Gil, George Ben, and all those kind of things. So I was very fascinated with the culture. So I was always planning on coming to Brazil, but I thought I would come as a tourist. And then in 1999. I came as a musician playing a concert at the Free Jazz Festival. So for me, that was just incredible. Mm-hmm. So, and Brazil was just as fantastic as I thought it would be. And then I had the privilege of coming back so many times. So I've been here many times, and every time is a good time.
Cool. And you were born into an artistic family. Have you ever considered another career that has nothing to do with art, or you felt that being an artist was the only option?
Yeah, I guess I'd never considered something outside of the creative world. So I was at first a musician. My father taught me how to play drums, and when I was a kid, I was probably planning on becoming a musician. But then I discovered acting along the way, and then that kind of sidetracked me for a while. But music was always there, and I did jobs, especially when I went to school in New York and stuff, and I did a bunch of different jobs so I could have some money. Mm-hmm. And the one job I really enjoyed was landscaping. I don't know what it's called in Portuguese, but building gardens. Mm-hmm. And we would drive out of New York City up to Connecticut or upstate New York, and all day just be out there, digging and planting and making the garden beautiful. Oh. That was a job I really enjoyed, I'd say, but I don't think I would want to have it as a career, but it was fun.
Like a hobby.
Yeah, I do.
And what do you like the most about being a musician, and what do you like the least?
The most is exactly what I'm going to be doing in 2 days, which is playing concerts live. Mm-hmm. Getting up on stage and playing music and having the people out there and having that interaction and the good vibes. That's definitely the best thing in the world. And that's, for me, is everything else that I do within music is a means to an end. So the writing, the recording, and the promotion, everything is about getting up on stage and playing live. It's the only time, to me, it all makes sense, So all the other parts, the least, I guess the least is kind of the whole business aspect of it, and how, at the end of the day, you're making a product that needs to be sold to make the money for everybody, including me. Mm-hmm. And that part, when you kind of sometimes start feeling like you're selling something and you're not sure what it is, and you forget along the way that's why, like I said, when I get up on stage, then I go, right, this is why I did all that other stuff. So yeah, it's a funny old business.
Yeah, and when you were 12, you moved from Sweden to New York, and then you used to work as an actor and a drummer. When happened the transition for a songwriter and singer?
It's a good question. Where did the transition happen? Mm-hmm. Well, I was living in Brooklyn, and I started some bands in New York. And the last band I did before I started going solo was a really cool band called Love and Life. But we were a lot of people. We were 9 or 10 people in the band. It was like a big collective, and lots of singers and musicians and percussion and stuff. But it's the politics of keeping that big of a band together was like, and I was kind of running things. I wasn't the main singer, but I was writing a lot of material, and it was just so much politics with everybody, dealing with musicians that don't turn up for rehearsal, coming late to concerts, and after that I said, that's it. I'm going solo. But then for me it was the writing wise, because I really wanted to be in a band, you know, and I, like even now when I'm doing all the interviews on my own, I would love to have a few more people here to share the interviews with. But when I started writing the songs that became Desireless, the first album, it was the experience of starting to really discovering songwriting, which is something I hadn't really done on that level, and personalizing it and starting to find the stories within the songs. Was an amazing experience, and that feeling of, oh my God, you know, I really think this is a great song and I want to get up and sing it for people. That process of making that first album was really when I found myself as a musician and found the road that I'm still on, you know.
Yeah, nice. And can you tell me which artists you enjoy the most and how you are influenced by them?
That's an impossible question to answer for me.
Because there are so many.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to music, lots of different kinds of music. And that's also because I grew up. One of the biggest gifts my father gave me, not only the road that he opened up as a musician for me, just even with the name, but was that he was such an amazingly curious musician, and he listened to so much different kinds of music. And like I said, we listened to lots of Brazilian music, but he was very into world music, but he also listened to, you know, all the great soul records like Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye and all those kind of things. And then he also, and even played with, like, he got into the punk, which is where I really discovered, like, the Ramones and stuff. And he started playing with people like Lou Reed and a lot of names I'm dropping. But because he was so, like, that feeling of finding all the different kinds of music. So I'm a mood listener, so I listen to things, whatever mood I'm in. But I think for me personally, with the kind of music that I make, I'm definitely a big, like, Bob Dylan fan just because of the lyrics. And he writes a song with 10 verses where I wish I could write one verse as good as that. And Tom Petty is another one that I really love because of the way he does something that I feel that I do a bit of, which is rock, but with a very much of a pop sensitivity, you know, like there's definitely a pop feeling in his songs and stuff. So there's a lot of music out there.
And as a songwriter, what are your inspirations to create, and when you know when a piece is done? And don't change and change and change.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know is I'm not the kind of person that likes to play songs for people before it's done. I have a lot of friends who make music, and I'll hear, you know, we're in the studio, listen to this, and they're still in the process. Whereas I for me, it's very important to have the song finished, and then I can present it. But I think a song tells me when it's done. It's quite obvious. It's for me, we record my stuff with the band, and then obviously we do stuff afterwards. But basically, you do the basic tracks. You get the band into the studio and you record, which is quite old school nowadays. Not everybody does that. Maybe more in Brazil than they do in Europe. And then the song is kind of quite far along the way, and then we do all the kind of fine tuning and making it nice and pretty, you know. But to me, it's like it's just quite obvious when a song. One thing that was very important for me when I started my career was to make an album that was 100% me, because I was lucky enough to know, especially through my sister Nana, where I'd seen the business from behind the scenes, and doing this and having to go out there and like I said earlier, sell this, I need to be 100% behind the music, and it has to be me. So when I make my music, it's not very often where I listen and wish I would have done something differently. But what I do experience is when we start playing live, the arrangements and the song kind of get better. So that can get frustrating, where like as we've been touring, it's like, oh, I should have done that. But, you know, that's the beauty of playing live, and that's why people have to come and see it live to really hear the songs at their best.
Okay, and now my last question. Can you tell me a little bit about your last album, Streets of You?
I sure can. Streets of You is I guess it's a comeback album for me, because I took a long break from the music scene. I needed a break. I've been doing it for a long time, and as I took this break, anonymity started kicking in. People not recognizing me, and I loved it.
It
was fantastic. So that made it kind of hard for me to decide to come back. And I knew I wanted to be in music, but I thought maybe I would find another way to do it, either behind the scenes or something. I started missing touring. I really missed it, to be on the road like we are now. So I decided to make the album. I traveled to write it. I went to New York, I went to LA, and then I ended up in Nashville, in Tennessee, where they call the Music City. And that was it. That was what really got me going. Not that the album has so much of that sound, but just hanging out, writing, recording, but also just listening to all these bands there. There's so much music there. And kind of like in Brazil as well, where, you know, everybody's playing music everywhere. And I came home from there. I live in Stockholm, and then it was just like easy street to finish the album. And the album is basically a collection of songs that after I'd finished it, realized that many of the songs are about change, going into something new and looking back. Some songs are about looking back at what was before. And I think in a way those songs reflect exactly where I was at and where I am at. I mean, like making an album that's going to change my whole life, that I'd like had it for quite a while, you know, the tranquille, mellow, you know, under the radar life, and then suddenly it's like, okay, we're going to get back in there. And I'm loving it. I'm so happy to be back and being on the road and ending this tour, which has been going on for a year now, in Brazil. It's perfect. My favorite place to play live, and then play these gigs, and then when I'm done, get back in the studio.
Yeah.
With the Brazilian energy.
Cool. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
the interview.
Thank you.
Tonight, fight the break of dawn. Come tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be gone.